Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel and what has turned out to be our 100th episode re-review.
My God.
Wow. I say re-review because technically we've reviewed the newer episodes, but this is our 100th review of one we'd already seen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you're new and this is the first one you're watching, you've got a lot to catch up on, I'm afraid. That's
You must watch them all now.
over 100 hours of video footage there. God, that's
Oh, God.
horrible to think about.
I'm so sorry.
If you do watch all of that, I do apologize. But yes, this is the 100th episode of this, and that means in the Doctor Who New Who timeline, we have now reached series 7, episode 12/11. Again, depending on who you're going off. I'll just keep going by BBC iPlayer.
Don't just take one.
Either way, it is the Crimson Horror.
It is,
which is the third to last episode of series 7.
Mm-hmm.
So boy, it's getting close to the end. It's almost time to say goodbye to Matt Smith.
Oh.
And hello to John Hurt as well. Don't forget.
And goodbye to John Hurt.
Oh, and goodbye to John Hurt.
And hello and goodbye to David for a little bit.
Yeah, for a brief cameo in the big scheme of things, and Paul McGann as well. Don't forget Paul McGann.
Yes.
But yes, that's to come. First of all, we sat through the Crimson Horror again. This sees, how to explain this one? This one technically sees the Paternoster gang investigate an appearance of the Doctor, and they then run into the Doctor and Clara investigating Sweetville, a matchstick factory. I think they say, run by this old lady, Mrs. Gillyflower, and her mysterious partner, Mr. Sweet. All is not what it seems, however, and people seem to be just plasticized, preserved in some weird goo, and kept in pots because the apocalypse is coming, allegedly. Hijinks ensue. The villain is stopped. You know the drill. Classic Doctor Who, really. What did you think of this episode?
I loved it. I genuinely loved it. Even more than I thought I would. I think this is definitely my favorite episode of 7B. And I think there's Asylum of the Daleks and Angels Take My Hand. I love those two, and I think this would come right after those two. It's definitely one of my standouts of the season so far. I've always really liked it. I've always, had a great fondness for it. I remember rewatching it a lot as it was kind of first airing and stuff. It was one of the ones. It's kind of like my kind of boomtown, I guess, in a way. Like the one episode of a series that I would just watch on repeat or have it in the background, just because the vibes are good. So very much that kind of whole deal. And yeah, just right from the off, I was just having a blast with it. Again, it does something a bit different by having the point of view not be the Doctor or a companion for like the first half or so, but it is still like established characters the audience do know. So kind of like a pseudo spin-off for the Paternoster gang, really, for the first half before they kind of properly explain what's going on. And yeah, it was. I don't know why I was so surprised at how much I loved it, but it's just so silly, but it leans into it. It's kind of like pantomime-ish in the best way. Everyone's, I think, really just giving it their all. I think you can tell Mark Gatiss had an absolute riot writing this episode, and I think people clearly enjoyed making it as well, because it's just bonkers in the best Doctor Who way. It's not, bonkers like what on earth is happening, potential like Frog on Chair vibes, for instance, like what on earth is happening. Some people aren't fans of that kind of bonkers. I've grown to love that kind of bonkers of it. But this one, I've always loved this kind of bonkers, and I love it. That it's just unapologetically kind of farcical. But yeah, it's just an absolute blast. It's thoroughly entertaining. It flew by for me. I couldn't believe how quickly the time went. I really, really struggled for negatives. I genuinely only really have one. So I was scraping. My other two were like question mark at the end because I don't even know if I dislike it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had an absolute blast. Definitely one of the standouts of this season for me. I loved it.
Yep, I did really enjoy it. I think it's up there with I think Cold War is my favorite of Series 7B so far. I think this is also up there, but they're tonally different. So I
Oh, yeah.
can't really be like, yeah, this is better because I like them both. It's Barbie and Oppenheimer. I like them both. They're both 5 stars, but I'm not gonna, I wouldn't say
You've seen Barbie 3
that
times and Oppenheimer once.
I have. Well, exactly, and that says enough. But they're still both 5 stars. So yeah, I think that's fair. I think the main takeaway for this one is just it's camp. It's so camp.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it when Doctor Who does it and leans into it. The campness works quite well. There are times when it doesn't lean into it, Love and Monsters, where that kind of it tries to be too serious and it is only camp by accident. But when it does it like this, I think it works much better than if they tried to play this with a straight face. There's no way that it would work as well as it has done. But yes, our usual formula: 3 positives and 3 negatives. Is it you go?
I believe it's your turn.
Oh wow! Look at that. Well, my first one I think is Mrs. Gillyflower.
That is fair.
And just the whole vibes. She just switches from being the worst person imaginable
literally
to being the quirkiest person ever. I don't know whether that was the direction from the director or the script, or whether it's the actress just going off the vibes.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're like in the same scene as her being like, oh yeah, I experimented on my daughter. She then, she's then got a gun to her going, aha! Like, whoa, hold on a minute, what's
die?
Yeah. So I think, again, if it was not in this episode, this feels like Simon Pegg in The Long Game.
Yes, that's a good comparison.
If Simon Pegg was if The Long Game was this, it would have worked much better because Simon Pegg is playing this like lunatic basically, but it doesn't work within everything else that's going on. Whereas this, the whole thing's ridiculous. A matchstick factory to start with is so niche and weird that you're already like, okay, that's a bit strange. The big monophones, the big speakers, gramophones, the big speakers that project the factory noises. Yeah, one of them. It's all so over the top, and it's really capped off by Mrs. Gillyflower and how over the top that is as well. Even from like just her revealing her deformed daughter on the stage, like right at the start, like this could happen to you. Oh no, not the deformed daughter that you love so dearly.
Yeah.
So I just think it's so camp and over the top, but there is that like sinister. This is just a terrible person in it for herself. And I think it works really well, and the performance is excellent. And if it wasn't for this, I don't think this episode would be as fun, as strange as it is to be, as fun as it is. I don't think it would. If it wasn't for her, it wouldn't be this good.
If it was played as like, I'm just an evil, horrible person, like just like it was like Ebenezer Scrooge, kind of playing it like that.
Yeah,
she'd have been exceptionally boring as a character, but Diana Rigg just really runs with it and makes it very bonkers and unique. And like you said, like the whole Long Game comparison, like the villain fits the tone of the story as well, so it works a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there are so many, we'll come on to it, but there are so many lines that she just comes out, just die, you freaks, die.
Yeah, I mean, we've been quoting her for literal years.
Yes,
like even before we were doing these reviews, we were quoting Mr. Sweet, where you going?
Because there's just no need for it. There's just it's like, this could be in the wrong hands. And what are these? The wrong hands.
Amazing.
I'd
be patting myself on the back if I'd written that line. I'd be like, yes.
But that's it. Like, I don't know how much I don't know how much of it is down to the script and whether these are directions in there saying, this villain is, they get a little character blurb saying this is what we want you to do, or how much of it's just the actor coming on stage and being like, I'm gonna do this. Let me know if it doesn't work.
I definitely think, spoilers for some fun facts coming up. I do think a lot of it is very like script, like Mark Gatiss-ism, because this was the first time that Dame Diana Rigg and her daughter, who obviously plays her daughter in this as well, it's the first time they've ever worked on screen together. And they've been offered lots before, but this was the first one they ever accepted because of the script. So I'm guessing they thought this is going to be ridiculous. Let's do it.
Yeah, fair enough, and that's good. I'm very glad they did, and I'm very glad that they were allowed to be as batshit as they were. I think it works to its favor. So what's your first positive?
My first positive is the production.
I
just love how this episode was put together. Like the costume designs, I thought were amazing. I love just how they kind of brought they're always good at like the Victorian era anyway, as is often the case. I mean, even Mark Gatiss wrote The Unquiet Dead, so he's written this kind of period before. He knows what it's about. It's clearly a favorite for him. So costumes are top notch, the set design and everything. I love just how like off like Sweetville does look. You can tell like something a bit not quite right with this place. The design of the rejects, who are like the titular Crimson Horrors, and the people who it's successful on, the little kind of glaze, like the makeup they kind of give to the people who are preserved and stuff. It's just gross. The creaking sounds that the doctor's making when he's moving and all the victims are making, like that was just so kind of unnerving, and I love the kind of sound effects they use for that. Mr. Sweet, it's like such a bad, freaky little guy design that I love it. It's so obviously just this weird puppet thing, but and it's also weirdly scary but weirdly adorable at the same time. And I just love the kind of design of that as well, and the way they did the flashbacks of the Doctor and Clara, and the kind of stage it. So like it's kind of like tinny audio, and there's a sepia tone over it. So it's a very stylistic episode as well, and it really does feel like everyone was just firing on all cylinders when they kind of, I guess, bringing Mark's vision to life from the script. You can tell it's kind of a labor of love from him, and I think maybe he got to oversee a lot of the production of this one, because sometimes writers do. So it definitely feels that way, especially because Mark at this point has been associated with the show from the very start of the revival, so he may have some kind of influence like that. But yeah, it was just so well kind of brought to life, the whole kind of vibe of it, the whole aesthetic of it. I really do think they nailed it. And we've seen Victorian stuff recently with like the snowmen, stuff like that, but this still felt fresh. I mean, it helps that they're not set in Victorian London, they're in Yorkshire this time, so they're changing that up. But
or Christmas,
yeah. So it's like a period of time we have seen explored before multiple times in New Who, but they've made it feel really fresh and different. Again, that's, I think, down to the batch shittiness of the episode and what it's trying to do. But I just love kind of all the production values for this one.
Yep, I think that's fair enough. And it kind of goes into my second positive as well, which is the design of Mr. Sweet. I think he's, as you said, such a weird little guy, and he's only there for like.
I'm so sad they never made like a little rubber Mr. Sweet.
A little clip-on one, yeah. He's so weird, and for a thing that's only on the screen for like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, if not less. That, there's such I thought that for a lot of this, I was like, there's so much effort put into this. Like when she does the thing on like the organ and it all spins around and there's something else, like I was like, how much do they spend on this one thing just for this one? I was like, that's ridiculous that it looks that good just for the one episode in the middle of a season that they know there are bigger episodes coming up next where they're going to need a bigger budget. Like,
I'm pretty sure this was like the cheap episode as well for like the back half of the series, which is
baffling. I mean, a lot of it is like corridors and dark rooms, but still some of the production stuff, Mr. Sweet and that the thing, even like the big bit where they're in the jar, that's still pretty weird, and that requires a bit of budget. And the rocket as well, that's a CGI thing. But yeah, Mr. Sweet's a standout of the whole. He like culminates the production design, I think, for me, because he's just Doctor Who has a really good
Symbiotic,
way.
you might say.
He has a.
And
They
when he
have a
does the
really good
dramatic
way.
he reveals it.
and
So
then
good.
he just toddles off. He's like, okay, bye guys, see you later. Nothing else. Oh, but like the show has such a good way of making just these one-off weird things that people just end up loving and enjoying. You think the Slovene one-off, they're really enjoyed. They haven't really made a return. Mr. Sweet, I don't know how widely they're enjoyed, but still pretty entertaining. The Pating as well from more recently. That's such a weird little guy that only had one episode, yet people remember it and remember him. There's just it's amazing that the show can do this. The Adipose, they're one episode, and they're so I think it's great that they can come up with these things. And 7 series is in 100 episodes. You'd think maybe they're going to start running out of ideas. They're not going to have some of these monsters are going to start looking the same and stuff. But that's not the case, and that's still not the case going into however many episodes we're going to be at with the 60th now. It's a credit to the writing team and the creators of the show, the actors and stuff. It's almost like, Liam, you need writers, good writers, to write your shows and be fairly compensated for those writing credits.
Oh, really? Do you think they should be real people, these writers?
Maybe. I think all these ideas came from real people. So if these real people did these real ideas, I think we should stick with the real people.
Yeah, it's almost as if scripts have personalities in them because the people writing them have personalities, almost.
Yeah, it's like any form of art really should come from a real person, and there should be systems in place to make sure that real people don't get screwed over by not real people.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's not much of a concern
for another day. Oh, no,
yeah,
no.
That's a different video. I'm sure
they're not going to go on. They're not going to go on strike over it, so it doesn't really matter. So what's your second positive?
My second one, it kind of ties into what you've been talking about, I guess, but I've just put the side characters / the guest cast. Shove them all into one, basically. Which makes sense because it's a symbiotic relationship. But yeah, I mean, obviously the core ones are like the Paternoster gang, who are always great, and they're popular for a reason. And Strax just on fine form as always. It was great to see Jenny get kind of the forefront of the first half of the episode as well, because she's kind of been the one who hasn't had as much. So it's great to kind of see her kick some ass and stuff like that, and do a bit of undercover work. So that was all really cool. And I guess Vastra's, the one who was more left behind in this one, but is also, her appearance is justified because she knows what this pink poisoning stuff is, and it's a great way of kind of explaining that and getting that across in a way the audience can really kind of personally understand. So that was really clever, I thought. And again, she's had a lot of focus in the previous appearances of the Paternoster gang, so it's nice to kind of balance that out a bit. We've talked about how iconic Mrs. Gillyflower is and how good Dame Diana Rigg is. Just insane. I mean, yeah, she's nuts. And yeah, just such an amazing performance on her. It could have been such a boring kind of one-note villain, but she has so much fun that you can't help but just love her. And she's very abusive to her daughter. Probably killed her husband. Killed all sorts of Mauser people. Has a little weird little guy on her chest, and she's feeding it like sugar or salt or whatever it was she spilled on the table. Just horrible, nasty lady. And yeah, I'm like, oh, she's never did anything wrong. It's great. She's so funny. And like from her very first scene, where she's like, I'm so sorry for the loss of your husband, and then you hear him screaming in the background. She just there like, it's so good. She just commands the screen right from the off. So she's great. I really loved Ada as well. Rachel Sterling plays her. I felt really sorry for her. I think that was a really lovely kind of I like that you're kind of thinking like, oh, they might try and redeem Mrs. Gillyflower through Ada and her love for her daughter, because they try to establish that that's kind of maybe the connection they have, and then you kind of realize that's not how it is at all. And it's just the fact that she refuses to forgive Mrs. Gillyflower at the end. I love Mark Gatiss making amends for the Idiot's Lantern. Thank God, abusive parents should not be forgiven. So that was really cool. And yeah, I loved her relationship with her monster, being the Doctor, of course. That was very sweet and wholesome. And just, I like that she does have some of, Mrs. Gillyflower-isms in her. Like when she just snaps at Mrs. Gillyflower when she realizes what she's done, and then her just pulverizing Mr. Sweet at the end. That's such a good moment. Made even better by Matt Smith's delivery of, or maybe, and then he's just completely speechless about thinking what he needs to do with this creature, and then she just yeets it into death. So that was great. Teeth Woman is what I put.
Okay, Abigail, I believe her name was.
Abigail, that's it. Who Jenny's going to work with and like pays her to make a distraction. I thought she was a fun little character for her one scene. I thought she was very funny. And then Fainting Man, Teeth Woman and Fainting Man.
Poor Fainting Man.
Poor
Mr.
Fainting
Thursday.
Man.
Mr. Thursday, I believe his
Mr.
name
Thursday. Yeah, so
he can't do anything. Everything that happens, he's like, oh, too much.
He's just a funny little guy. He's a relatable kid. He's the most realistic reaction from anyone in Doctor Who ever to everything that's going on. So yeah, I really enjoyed his constant presence as well. Just reminding us every now and again, like there is a story going on here. It's not all just crazy and mad. So I liked his appearances and the recurring gag of him just fainting at every little thing that happens. So they were great, and yeah, Mr. Sweet, just what an icon. So we had a really great set of guest characters in this one, the supporting characters and the villains, and the sympathetic villains, all of that kind of jazz. It was really well done throughout, and yeah, just again, everyone firing on all cylinders. The casting department obviously did an amazing job with this one as well. So I just loved, I think, literally every single major character in this story, which is pretty bloody impressive, particularly considering the last episode.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I mean, you even forgot to mention the Northern Morgman.
Northern Morgman, the Crimson Aura,
who was great in his 3 scenes where he makes it look like the Crimson Horror is just what people are calling it, but then you realize it was him that had come up with the idea.
He's trying to make it happen.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. The whole castings again on point. I think it helps slightly that 5 out of the cast have appeared in the show before.
So they know what they're doing. Introducing those of them.
Yeah, exactly, and that probably helps and and it probably makes the episode feel a lot quicker anyway, because you're not introducing like, oh, I'm blah 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 blah. So I think that helps. My final positive, the humor, just how funny this episode is. Yay!
Hooray!
Wow. But I touched on it before. It's a very camp episode, and the comedy really hits well in this. From the line deliveries to the unnecessary but great Thomas gag, which
I still don't know how I feel about it. I really don't know if I love it or hate it.
I was watching, I was like, they don't need this. This doesn't need to be in here. They're just gonna have them turn up. They don't need to be like, oh, where can we go? So I don't know what's there, but it's great. It's like the line especially where it's like, where Strax is about to kill the horse. He's like, oh, 3rd one this week. I'm not even hungry. And it's like,
not even hungry this time.
So I was like, oh, God's sake. And I think it's the comedy in this one's great, and that obviously is a script thing. We've already spoken about Mrs. Gillyflower's iconic lines, but still, there's just so much good humor in this. More than you thought, more than I remember there being, which is good. And even when they're doing the northern accents to get into the Sweetville factory, and Clara's just sort of looking at him and going, "That's a shit northern accent, mate. What are you doing?" Which I really like, especially because the Doctor's normally the one that's like, oh, don't do accents. He's now fully like, I'm doing a northern accent and you can't do anything about it. It's great. I think it's a lot funnier than I thought it was. And again, considering some of the stuff's pretty dark, there's a lot of dead people in this. There's an abusive mother, so
there's a great balance somehow.
You kind of come out of it thinking, oh, that was pretty funny, and you think, oh, hang on a minute, that poor daughter was abused and like experimented on, yet we were like, oh, it's so funny.
Strax has killed 3 innocent horses. We're like, what a silly guy.
At least two. But even him, trying to say, if they listened to Strax right at the start, they'd have had this episode solved like straight away. If they'd have just listened to him and gone in with like guns and bombs, done. The episode's finished. So maybe you should start listening to him. And even when they're in a thing and the people come up at the end and Strax, they're like, oh, run away! And Strax just comes in, just running his. it's just all of it's great. And I think whenever we come back to this era with this group, I think it is a nice treat, and I think it's a shame that we've not gone back since sort of this time. These next 6-7 episodes, we've not gone back and seen them, because even in Deep Breath, they've got some excellent moments similar to this one where they have to come in and invade a factory and stuff. But maybe one day we'll return. Maybe in the 60th we'll get some, because
Big Finish fans are well fed with them.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you could just go to Big Finish, but it's not the same.
They're the reason Big Finish is still going, I think.
Yeah,
how
true.
popular they were when those box sets were coming out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all good.
But yeah. So your third positive is also humor.
It was, yeah. I was laughing out loud just so many times. Like, I'm the Doctor, you're nuts, and I'm going to stop you. Everyone's delivery just on point. I love the recurring joke about the effectiveness of a chair. And sometimes that's just the valid option. That was all very well and good. There's just so many iconic lines. We are going to the north. Like it's just, what was Mark Gatiss on when he wrote this? Like, just incredible scenes. He's probably on some Crimson stuff, I guess. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed the humor behind it. And it is impressive considering how dark this episode can get. That it is as funny as it is. This episode really shouldn't work, but the fact that it does is genuinely incredible. So imagine that Thomas joke in any other episode. You'd be like, "What the was that?"
People would be
people would be like the gagging resolution with that family with the internet going out. It would be that. Yeah. It would be ridiculed like that was.
If that joke had been in the 30th Doctor's era, people would have been furious. You wouldn't have heard the end of it, but.
Yeah,
but it's fine.
Anyway, but yeah, it's just so many hilarious moments. I'm sure I've forgotten so many that made me laugh out loud. But just at a script level, there were some really funny gags in there. The Thomas one, I still don't know how I feel about it. It's been 10 years. I still couldn't tell you if I like it or not. But it's such a bonkers joke in a bonkers episode. It does fit, even if it doesn't need to happen or be there or make any real sense. But I kind of like it anyway. And yeah, so at a script level, it's just funny, but everyone just elevates it with how they deliver those lines as well. Just so many amazing little moments. So yeah, all very well and good. A really, really funny episode. And I'm glad we could laugh at an episode for all the right reasons after Journey to Center of the TARDIS.
Yes, definitely. This was a welcome change to last week.
Imagine if they had kept the original order of episodes and Journey to Center of the TARDIS was the 100th episode of New Who. I'd have been furious.
Maybe they changed it because they saw Journey and went, no, that can't be it.
No, we can't let people remember this one for too long. Don't put it that close to the finale.
No, yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think the humor is the standout for this episode. And Doctor Who can be very funny at times, but it's always better when it's funny intentionally rather than funny by accident, which sometimes it is.
Oh, that's another funny bit I remember. When Vastra's like to Strax, have you been eating all of Jenny's lemon sherbets again? He's like, no, he's just such a little baby. I love him.
He's an innocent little guy just trying to make his own way in the world, but his mums don't let him.
We are very, very close to him throwing the newspaper at Clara as well.
I am so excited for it. I cannot wait. That's the best thing the whole show's ever done. That was it.
Whether you like Clara or not, everyone loves that moment.
No, yeah, exactly.
Everyone wins.
Everyone does win. Additional positives for me, I think the music in this episode was actually pretty good. As well, when it kicks in properly for like the big dramatic moments, I think it kicks in quite nicely and it doesn't really overshadow too much. Big shout out again to Strax, and I think we always shout him out, but I think it just big props to the actor Dan Starkey and just the makeup team, because it's the fact that you don't even look at it and go, oh, that's just a man in the mask, that I don't see that and think, oh yeah, that's just some really good prosthetics. I see it as the character. And the same with Vastra as well, but to a lesser extreme, I think, with that one, because it's more you've got more of a human face there, whereas with Strax, it's more of a
it's very
a thing.
very alien.
Yeah, and they do so well with it, and I think it's such an underrated part. You know, especially because that costume's probably what 8 years old at this point.
So old now. Yeah, they have
You
to
know,
really. They have one that's just in good condition that they kept using.
Yeah, I have to keep getting it out. But that's good. Yeah, the pacing we mentioned this episode sort of seemed to zoom by. I think it helps that they had the Jenny stuff first, and it sort of did a quick recap from the Doctor's point of view, and then it's like the finale. You're there.
Yeah.
So I think that helps with the pacing a little bit. Yeah, and you know, we mentioned all the delivery of a lot of the lines. I think everyone is on top form. And yeah, it's great all round. Have you got any additional positives?
Mainly just the Mr. Sweet reveal of like what's going on with that, and the fact it's just this creepy little guy. I think I remember being quite disturbed and shocked by that when that was first revealed, because I hadn't really guessed what was going on with all that. So yeah, that's just again batshit and wonderful, and it's such a cool little design for that creepy little guy. I'm pretty sure they had him on display at the Doctor Experience. That was always fun to see. A little Mr. Sweet there. Very, very creepy, but I love him anyway. So yeah, that was all very well and good. And I think that's kind of all my main ones, because I just loved everything. So we'd be here all day, really.
That's fair enough. However, we must now talk about the negatives. Similar to you, I've got kind of like two main ones, and then a sort of third one where I'm like, oh. But I'll start with the one that I think is probably your one, because you've already told me it is. 11 is a bit of a sex pest.
Yeah, the Doctor casually sexually assaulting Jenny was a choice.
Yeah,
that was made.
I always remember it, and I remember seeing it, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, it doesn't need to happen. Just high five her or hug her or something. I don't know why you need to, you know, in such an extreme way of kissing her as well. Like, and also, you know, she's a lesbian, so let's calm down.
Yes. Well, yeah, it just feels very out of place. It feels very
It feels very Tumblr shipping era, and it is that era, unfortunately, and it feels like they're into that. That's like Sherlock started to near the end. It went into the Tumblr shippers. It's definitely that kind of period, and aged like milk.
Yeah, it's not great. Maybe I could maybe forgive it because he's been trapped alone for so long, but I don't think we're ever really given a time frame of how long he's actually been stuck there for. Has it been months? Has it been?
No, I can't remember either.
Weeks, days. I think if they'd said they've been there for 6 months and he's not been able, it's just a relief of being free. Maybe there's still an element of being like, oh, well, kinda, but at the same point, if I've seen someone I've not seen for years, I don't kiss them like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's
a very
kind
of
strange,
out of character-ish moment.
Yeah, especially because he sort of does it to Jenny as well. If it was done to if Clara was the person, it might be
we all wanted it to be
better,
Strax,
but
that's what it should have been.
Well, yeah, that would have even. I think it might have even been acceptable if it was Strax, because it would have been so weird and so like.
Can you imagine the Doctor just
it was
hugging us onto her?
Amazing. That it wouldn't have surprised me if it was in this episode.
There absolutely will be fan fiction for that, I suppose.
Yeah, almost sure. Have you got anything to add on the sex pest 11th Doctor?
I don't really want to dwell on it, to be honest, because it's just a very gross, weird moment. Doesn't need to be in there. There's no reason for it. They could have done literally anything else. I don't really want to justify it because it just doesn't need to be in there. Simple as that.
Yep, I think that's fair enough. It's similar to the Amy Pond sex pest from series 5.
Yeah, basically.
Just unnecessary. My second negative, which is we're getting flimsier and flimsier as we go on, is that all the stuff Jenny has seen. Why is she so shocked that Clara is alive, or there's a version of Clara? She's just she's so hung up on it. She's like, even just look when they're looking for it, it's like, but why? And then at the end, she's like, but why? I'm like, nobody else cares. Stop asking the question.
The Doctor answered. But I suppose because of the original order at this point, when they wrote the script, he wouldn't have known.
Yeah, that's true. There's an element of that. But I think it kind of plays into the thing where I think there are moments in this episode where I was like, okay, I get it. We don't know who Clara is. I know it's supposed to be the mystery, but I think in this episode, it really felt like it was being rammed home. So I think it might be better to not have Jenny be like, "Oh my god," and maybe at the end her be like, "But how can that be her?" And the doctor like, "I have no clue, mate." And then have how the episode does end, where he's like, "That's not me in that Victorian bit." I think that would have been fine. But when it's like, "But
Yeah.
how? But how? But how?" It just
Especially
became a bit much.
Vastra, she has one moment and then that's it. She's like, okay, whatever.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is the others don't care. The others are like, "Oh, okay," and that's fair enough because you can, they've all experienced weird stuff because they fight, aliens and they time travel and whatnot. You'd think that this wouldn't be so like, "Oh my god," especially when it's only a person that they met once one Christmas. It's not even like this is someone that died that they knew for like years and has come back.
Mm-hmm.
If it was like Amy there, and they're like, but that might be a bit more justified because they all know who Amy was and the impact that she had on the Doctor, and that could, that would make more sense. But yeah, it just felt very ham-fisted and a bit forced. Too much. If they cut out the scene where he's like looking and she's going, you talk about something else. Be like, how did you get here? How something similar.
Or if just what she asked Clara about it rather than always just going to the Doctor.
Yeah.
They didn't really ever have a conversation. That's probably a bit missed opportunity. But that's what the name of the Doctor's for.
Yeah, well that's it. And they don't want Clara to be like to know that she's not. That's the whole thing. Clara's still in the dark, and so this is the beginning of her. I say the beginning of her. She sees the Victorian picture, but then it's not brought up again until Name of the Doctor anyway. So
yeah,
I get it. I get you need to plant the seeds for the story arc, and it's fine. I just think it's just too ham-fisted. I think in this one, but never mind. What's your second negative?
This is a bit unfair, but the kids.
Okay.
I was really struggling because this is going to be negative for the next episode, really. And again, it's like 40 seconds at the end just to set up the next one, so it doesn't really take that much away. But because at the time it's like, oh, cool, they know like what's going on with that, and maybe Clara's a bit privy to it, or she might just think, oh, well, that's going to be something I'm doing in the future. Then we're going to go to Victoria and London in the future, and then I get that taken or something. But it's a cool way of ending off the episode. It's something very different story-wise to be like, oh wow, okay, so how's this going to go? I do like it when they do kind of end an episode and then tie it into the next one.
Like Flux. Everything in
Flux, and the first 3 episodes of series 10 all kind of lead into each other as well. So I like it when they do that. But it also just reminds me of how much I hate those kids. They're just really annoying. And I just know, I mean, they're truly annoying in the next one. They're fine here. I think
it'd be harsh to say both are. I think the older girl is the worst culprit of both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in the next one, but in this one as well, it's a bit.
Yeah, because obviously she takes the chance. She's just so smug about it. Like, shut up. Like, just shut up, Angie. So it's an interesting ending and stuff, but it's a retroactive negative because we know where that leads. So that's very unfair on the episode's part, but I do need some negatives, and I genuinely love so much of this episode that I just have to give it to the kids. Fuck them.
No, fair enough. I saw thought as well. They're like, oh, I'm gonna tell. I'll tell Dad, and I've just written, just let them tell their dad. You go on time traveling adventures. You don't need
get
to stay there.
Get yourself locked up and tell Dad. Off you go.
Oh yeah, just tell it. They're not going to believe you, and B, you don't need the job. You can just leave. I mean, you leave next season anyway. We never see these kids again, so it doesn't matter. Just just leave. But yeah, it's fair enough. I think that's the kids. I'm like, it's because it is retroactive. You're reminded of, oh god, they're so annoying, and especially
and it does kind of break the vibe of the episode a bit as well, having that right at the end.
Yes, because if you cut it off, it's all Victorian, it's all nice and neat and packaged, and you need to, if that scene's not at the end, it's at the start of the next one, which I don't know. Maybe they were running late on time for this one, and they had too much the next one. So
I could see that. They accidentally contracted the kids for one more episode than they planned for, so just stick them at the end of this one. It's like
exactly.
It's when because the production was so good in this one, when Strack runs in and he's got like his proper on-time uniform and everything, that's like that looks so out of place and so weird. But obviously because it's Strack, everything still works within the context of the episode. But this one still feels like it goes against the rest of the episode somewhat, so it's a bit lame.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. My third one. Now this is really scraping the barrel. They just leave. What about all the servants that were serving Gillyflower? They're just not there anymore. Where did they go? Did Strax kill them all? Have they all been?
They've all been eaten.
But because they make such a big thing, and there's a really creepy bit where they'll all like come out the doors and behind them, and they take the Doctor and Clara to be processed. That's really creepy, but they just sort of wander around. They get beaten up, unless all of them got beaten up by Jenny and Strax in that corridor, and that was it. But then you see some of them loading the rocket, so I don't know what happened to them. Are they brainwashed? Are they sorted out? The Doctor sort of goes, I'm going. I'm not going to clean up the mess," and then it's kind of just left there. But they might have just done. There could have been a line where they say, or Vasher's like, "Yeah, we're gonna make sure the people that were impacted to get whatever, get sorted out."
Yeah.
I think it's just a bit of a loose thread, and they're pretty pointless anyway because they don't really do much except grab Clara and the Doctor. Other than that, they do literally nothing. So
yeah. Attack of the Supermodels was a good line, but I don't think it justifies them being in it.
No, it definitely didn't, and not how many they are, because they just disappear as soon as the whole main cast get to the tower. They know where to be
huge monks from Tooth and Claw vibes. They just disappear when they're no longer required for the plot, and then we don't know.
No, yeah, exactly. I think that is fair. But sometimes you just need a faceless army to.
There's something about
to look menacing.
Servants of the villains in Victorian times just disappearing without a trace from the story.
Yeah, it's true. There's going to be one where they're all going to like have a little gathering of just all the different. The monks are going to be there.
Yes.
The servants from this are going to be there. The great intelligences people is going to be there. The people that he worked for him. Who else can go? I don't know, any of the or any of the Clockwork people that weren't, because I'm pretty sure they all disappear at one point, and it's only the one guy that gets killed. So maybe there's more of them milling about.
We're going to unionize.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
pay
fine.
your servants.
I can accept like having a faceless army of something, because sometimes you just need to make the threat look bigger, and it's fine, it's fair enough. But when there is no resolution to that faceless army and they just kind of just vanish for no reason, I don't think.
Even just Ada being like, "Don't worry, I'll clean up the mess" or something like that. Just to like something's going to happen, and maybe I don't want to reread the Target novelization because they might explain it and I've forgotten. But I'm not going to do that. So
no. I should
we talk about how great the pacing is in the episode, but the novelizations just
no. Yeah, we always say maybe that should be the negative. The Target novelization. It's just
the fact that the Target exists, so it makes a Target novelization.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've read it. I think
the second half is fine, which is the actual episode. But
yes,
like literally half the book is a completely new, boring prelude.
Yeah, and it's not enjoyable to read. Sorry, I won't be going back and reading it, but maybe I'll read the last page to see if they say anything about.
Yeah, I might read the last couple bits.
Anyway, your third and final negative.
Again, this is like, I'm fine with the way it is, but still, I almost would have liked maybe to wait a little while longer before they found the Doctor and Clara and things got explained a bit. I think maybe there could have been a bit more investigation there. Maybe in place of the supermodels, there's just a bit more investigation going on. I was really enjoying that portion. Especially because it was something very different. You normally have like a Doctor light or a companion light, but to have like a Doctor and companion light in such a way, like the first half is like Doctor companion light. I kind of wish they spent a bit more time maybe leaning into that concept somewhat.
Similar to Blink, where that or somebody else is investigating where the Doctor and the companion have gone, but that's obviously that's the whole episode. But you could do something that's just similar. But,
I enjoyed the vibes, and obviously I love the plot of the episode for how batshit it is, but it is kind of almost a shame when it gets started.
Yes, it does. It would be so interesting to see what it would be like the other way around. With just if this was the Blink version for Matt Smith and just had no, they weren't in it except for like maybe one scene at the end where they get, or in the middle where they get found being like preserved and they have to break them out. But the show's called Doctor Who, and the Doctor needs to save the day, so that's what he does, I'm afraid. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I've got no additional negatives. Do you?
I do not know.
No, fair enough. Well, after that, I believe it is time for your fun facts.
It is indeed. Let's have a look.
Yay.
Ba-da-ba. Okay. This is the first time in the revived series a companion's associate has deduced the person's time-traveling affairs with the Doctor on their own without questioning the Doctor directly or having any experience in the TARDIS. Well done,
A
kids.
what? A what? Sorry, a what? Say that again.
The first time in the revived series that someone who
Yeah.
knows the companion, like a family member, friend,
Okay, yeah, all right. I'm with
has
it.
worked
Yeah.
out what's going on without like
Yeah.
meeting the Doctor or being
Got
in the
it.
TARDIS, etc.
Got it.
Those bloody kids. So yes, there's that. The Target novelization, released in March 2021, was dedicated to Diana Rigg, aka Mrs. Gillyflower, who passed away in September 2020. That's a bittersweet fun fact, but I thought I'd mention it anyway.
That's fair enough.
This is the only television story featuring Vastra, Jenny, and Strax not to be written by Stephen Moffat. The story was conceived as a pseudo spin-off for the characters due to their popularity. Moffat was originally planned to write the episode, but when he realised that time constraints would prevent him from doing so, he called Gatiss in to write it instead.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say Gatiss is too far removed from Moffat anyway, because I think they're pretty good friends.
They're
and
pretty tight.
Created, yeah, they've done Sherlock together, so it's not as if it's not as if that's probably why he trusted Gatiss to do it.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to. I don't think Gatiss would have said no. So, do you want to write Doctor Who again? Oh, okay. I'll write an episode of my favourite show. Okay, fine. And he absolutely
no one stays away. We've seen that. Nobody can stay away from the show, no matter how hard you try.
Stephen, you'll be back before you know it. Come on, Stephen.
Yeah.
This is the 100th episode of the revived series, as we mentioned at the start. Hooray! What an episode to reach 100 on this one. Diana Rigg is credited as Dame Diana Rigg, the first time the series has used such an honorific in the credits, because they could have called him Sir Michael Gambon in Christmas Carol, but they didn't. He's just Michael Gambon. So, absolute queen.
I assume Ian McKellen would have been a Sir as well.
Probably would have been Sir as well. Or was he knighted after that? I don't know. I don't know about any of that. I don't care unless it's me. Anyway. Sweetville is based on the real-world model village of Saltaire in Yorkshire, founded in 1851 by Titus Salt. Salt also had a daughter named Ada, after whom a street in the village is named.
And Mr. Sweet is sustained by Salt as well.
Whoa, it's all connected. And next time, we're going to go and visit the place in Yorkshire. Maybe one day. When our documentary series kicks off.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do it for the Series 7 collection box set when they get to that in about 20 years.
In 30 years' time.
Maybe one day. Vastra's client continually fainting was a satire on how women in the Victorian era were culturally perceived to act. What a man.
Okay.
Let's begin. Diana Rigg and writer Mark Gatiss both appeared in Game of Thrones as Olenna Tyrell and Tycho Nestoris, respectively. Matt Smith would go on to star as Daemon Targaryen in House of the Dragon. And Matt Smith and Diana Rigg would end up appearing together again in Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho, which would end up being Rigg's final film appearance before her death.
Oh, I've still not seen it.
Neither have I.
Good.
I should. I have heard good things. The Doctor indirectly references former companion Tegan Javanka as the Gobby Australian. His fifth incarnation repeatedly failed to drop off at Heathrow Airport. Just after this reference, the Doctor uses his old catchphrase he used to say to Tegan, Braveheart. And now she's back. She's come back.
I understood that reference this time. I wouldn't have understood it during the first time, and I was like, "Hey, that DiCaprio meme. That DiCaprio meme. I was like, I get it. I get that one."
Wow. Oh. And it only took 9 years for her to return after that reference. That's nice. Oh man. The episode features numerous homages to Rigg's work in the British TV cult show The Avengers, specifically referencing her character Emma Peel. I don't know what any of these references were because I haven't seen The Avengers.
But I know a fun fact about that though is that that TV show is the reason why The Avengers is called The Avengers and not Avengers Assemble. Sorry, I was going to say next. Assemble is called it.
I literally had in brackets after that Avengers Assemble, so I remembered to point that out. But you're on the ball, you fucking nerd.
See,
Dislike
that's the only one. That's the only thing I know because it's just called. It's called Avengers everywhere else, but in the UK,
and here it's Avengers Assemble.
And it's the same thing with Zootopia and Zootropolis. It's Zootropolis in the UK, but it's like Zootopia everywhere else. I don't know exactly what that reason is. I imagine it's a similar Avengers situation, but
maybe interesting.
Fun times with copyright, hey?
Yeah, it's a picture, right? Originally, the episode was going to feature mummies dressed in black, inspired by sufferers of the phossy jaw condition, which is when you get phosphorus in your bones and it all breaks off. So that might have been better than the supermodels. That would have been fun. And
that would have been more interesting, at least.
But I guess there just simply wasn't a place for them in the episode.
They just couldn't get any black toilet paper.
They just couldn't get any black dressed mummies. Mummies are quite hard to come by. They unionized quite a long time ago, so
that's true.
It's hard to hire. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was originally going to feature in the story, but when Gatiss couldn't find a significant enough role for him in the script, the appearance was cut. Back in the days where people didn't appear in things for the sake of it. I miss those times. Anyway, moving on.
Einstein and Oppenheimer cameo vibes, that would have been. Like, oh my God!
My name is Albert Einstein. And then it quietens so the audience can clap. He just stays there for a while.
I'm Einstein. Woo!
Woo! Woo! Yeah! Daredevil! Woo!
Oh my God! It's you, Arthur Conan Doyle. Wow! Wow!
Can you imagine? Every single time Rosa Parks says, "My name's Rosa Parks," and Rosa, they just pause.
Look at the camera like,
this is Martin Luther King Jr. Anyway,
terrible.
And then finally, this is quite a long paragraph. I didn't remember writing so much, but I'm going to read it all. Mrs. Gillyflower and Ada were written specifically for real-life mother and daughter Diana Rigg and Rachel Sterling. It was the first time the two had worked together on screen. Gatiss had worked on a play with Sterling while coming up with the concept of the story, during which she mentioned having never worked with Rigg before. Gatiss offered to tailor them characters into the script he was working on, and Sterling commented, "We've never worked together before, as the offers have not been tempting, but when such a funny and original script comes along, you know the time has come." Rigg was also able to use her native Doncaster accent on screen for the first time. So that's nice. So there you go. And last time.
Good for her.
I haven't seen all her work. I don't know.
Okay.
She had another 7 years to use it again. I don't know.
True. I don't know if she'd been in Game of Thrones at this point.
I think she has. Yeah, I think she was in it from season 2 or something.
Oh yeah, she wasn't she? Like as soon as Ed was dead, she was like, "Hey, I'm here." Yeah, at the very least, it was season 3 was her first.
Yeah,
and that would have been around this time.
Around this time,
yeah. Cool, lovely. The last thing to do then for the Crimson Horror is to give it a ranking out of 10. What number will you give it?
It's a 9 from me.
Very nice. It's an 8 from me.
Right.
Well, I think it's fair. It's fine. It's fine. There's just some issues where I'm like, oh, that could have been done a little bit better. But
you just hate Doctor Who.
I just hate Doctor Who, and the first 20 minutes of this is just female led as well, which it's two things it should be.
True.
Doctor Who with a woman in the lead role will never be successful. Come on now.
Yeah, 100 episodes and they went woke. That's it.
Yeah, terrible.
Cancel the show.
That is it then for this week. Next week we will be back with Nightmare in Silver.
Cybermen. My voice.
I remember quite liking this episode. I don't think people really like it online. I see a lot of hate for it.
I think it's because it's Neil Gaiman, who also wrote The Doctor's Wife, coming back.
Oh, right.
I think people, it's the classic thing. They expect a lot more. And when it doesn't meet their expectations, they call it bad.
Yeah, maybe that's fair. I mean, I didn't even realize it was Neil Gaiman that wrote it, but now that you tell me, I'm like, yes, I do know that. That does ring a bell, but I don't.
Clearly, it ruined his career. He doesn't have any big shows currently as we're recording this. Starring David Tennant.
Definitely not starring
at
Michael
least
Sheen. Yeah, at least 2 other Doctor Who actors. They're definitely on it. But yeah, I mean, I remember liking it quite a lot. I'm pretty lukewarm on the new Cyberman design, though. I think that's probably. I wouldn't say I hate it. I just don't think it's the best one we've ever had. But
it's unfortunately not the first new series Cyberman design, so I think a lot of people just obviously going to prefer.
Yeah, as soon as and it's the same with the Daleks in 13-0. As soon as they were changed, people were like, "No, I don't like it." But and it's the same with the Paradigm Daleks as well. Whenever if it was introduced the first time when it's introduced, it must stay like that. It can't change again, but
yeah,
it can. It's fine.
For a show about change, Doctor Who fans really hate change.
Yes, and at least in this episode, they give a context and a reason as to why they've changed and why they look like this. It's as a result of however long this war has been, and you get classic New Who Cybermen designs anyway. You see that is in here.
Yeah.
I've recently seeing people be like, the Mr. Clever stuff from the Doctor is bad. I don't think it is. I quite like it.
Such poor taste. Get tested for COVID. You have no taste.
But we will see how it could be that they're all right. We might watch this and go, actually, yeah, the internet was correct. But I remember liking it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. What do you remember of it? What are you expecting?
I remember enjoying it well enough when it first aired. It's not my favorite Cyberman story by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like the Cybermen, so it's fun. And I like that they, took the plunge and changed the design up, and they actually stuck with this design, which is nice as well. Yes. Obviously, we did see others stay around, but these are consistent now throughout the rest of the Moffat era, which is nice.
And I think they're the Cyberman design in. Are they the Cyberman? They're pretty much Cyberman design in 13s as well, aren't they? Until they do the. Are they in there, or is it mainly the old square-headed Cybermen with like their new body?
I think it's just the old ones. I think it's like the 2006 ones.
Maybe.
But literally in that same episode when Simon are first in it, they like change it up. And obviously the first Cyberman we see in that era is what's his face, and he's got bits of all the Cybermen. So the Shard.
Yeah.
I was going to say Ashilda, but completely different character. We'll get on to her soon. Well, I say soon, months and months still. But
well, it's not that far away, is it? It's second series of.
We've still got like a series and a half. But,
yeah.
Yes. So I'm excited to see more Cybermen. The kids are going to annoy me. I know it now. I accept it in my heart. I can't remember the guest actor's name, but I really like him and everything I've seen.
Warwick Davis and the Nativity. He's in the Nativity.
He's in Trolleyed as well. He's been in. He's that guy's in everything, but he's always good.
He's also in the Nativity 2, Danger in the Major, and I think he's also in Nativity 3, Dude, Where's My Reindeer?
Basically, he deserves a better career, is what we're demonstrating.
Jason Watkins.
Jason Watkins, that's it. I really like him. He's great in everything I've ever seen him in. So I'm looking forward to seeing his little part in this one as well. I'm intrigued to see just how the new kind of cyber designs behave. I think Matt Smith earns an Emmy he didn't get in this episode with the Mr. Clever stuff. I'm looking forward to revisiting that. And I remember thinking Warwick Davis was quite bad in this episode. So I am intrigued to see if my opinion's changed.
A hot take on my point of view is I don't necessarily think Warwick Davis is a good actor anyway. Right. But yes, I see what you mean.
I hate to pick on the guy because, Life's Too Short is a great show. I did enjoy it. But I guess he is playing himself in that.
Yeah, and you watch him in like the Ricky Gervais stuff, and he's still playing himself. Whereas, he rose to fame with Star Wars and Ewoks, where he was younger and in a suit. So, yeah,
I would watch him in Willow, but they got rid of that on Disney Plus.
Yeah, you can't watch it. They wanted to stop paying him residuals, so they got rid of that show. Soz. Yeah. But when I have seen him in other things, I've kind of been like, yeah, you're fine, but.
Okay. So yeah, we'll see. I think I was kind of lukewarm on just his character in general. I don't know if the supporting cast is the strongest in the story, which probably doesn't help. But there's some good Doctor and Clara content, so I'm looking forward to revisiting this one. It's been a while, and obviously we know how I feel about Neil Gaiman's previous work on Doctor Who. So will they hold a candle to the Doctor's wife? No, but it's got Simon in it, so that's a pretty damn good start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the penultimate one before the series finale as well.
Yeah.
And the 50th stuff. So this is, starting to ramp up now. In a few weeks we'll be at
We're near the end of the Doctor trilogy.
Yeah. Trilogy, quadrilogy if we're including Night of the Doctor.
Well, that doesn't count. Who's Paul McGann?
It does. It counts.
Yesterday. He's
It
real
counts.
Tony!
I want a Target novelization of that. Just do it like
Can you
50
imagine?
pages. Just do it.
And I want to be paid as
Actually, no.
much as all the others.
I think it's in. I think it's in Day of the Doctor. I think it's at the
Oh, it
start.
is. You're right.
They
It
do
is
the
in-
prologue, don't
It
they?
is in
So
that, yeah.
I stand corrected, and I will reread it before.
They could
before that, 'cause
republish
I
it.
never
It's the
liked that
same
one.
thing.
That's true. Put it free online. But yes, that all should be next week. We are 3 months away from the 60th anniversary, so there is things may come out soon.
So
There
we're
could
going to
be
have to
a
watch these a
trailer.
lot speedier if we're going to catch up.
Yeah. We're gonna have to start doing like three
We're gonna have to
in
do,
a
like,
week, if not more.
7 or 8
One
a
every
day.
day. God, they're never gonna make it.
Not gonna
But
make
yes,
it.
so we're either way. I'm sure there will be a video here next week, or in the meantime. But until then, we'll see you later. Bye bye.
Bye.